And what I have found with calladita conditioning is that it's not that you're not knowledgeable. I mean, you've literally lived through your whole life and you have an 100% success rate. In other words, you've survived every single thing you've gone through in your life and you are here, right? So we need to stop discounting our own lived experience. It comes easy to you because you already lived through it and you know what you know, but you'd be surprised how helpful you could be to somebody else. Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erika Cruz. Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of Chingona Revolution podcast. This is your host, Erika Cruz, and today I want to talk to you about a common theme that I see with my clients, with people who follow me, and people who are around me. And this is the desire to create content or maybe leave a job that feels unsatisfying or starting to make money online. But they feel like they need more certifications, more clarity, more confidence. And I briefly talked about this in last week's episode when I was talking about Bad Bunny and what we can learn from him and how people love seeing the journey. And I want to go more in depth with that. And I specifically want to talk to you about what's happening with, at least with my clients and with people that are around me and with myself as well. So I want to walk you through my own journey and how I went from being invisible to impactful before I was the expert. A lot of us have this idea that we need to be an expert before we can show up. And we see this happening when we're writing emails at work. Maybe you're reading and overthinking the email, you're rereading it a bunch of times before you actually hit send, just like you're rereading the caption of a post before you actually hit post. And before I dive into that, I just wanted to give you all a little quick update. I am losing my voice. I'm not sick. I think it's because I was yelling so much when I found out that one of my closest cousins who I married, I didn't marry her. I married her and her husband. I officiated their wedding. It was really special. It was their 1-year anniversary yesterday, and they had a little gathering where they announced that they are expecting. And I was so excited, and I was screaming and yelling, and my voice is kind of coming in and out. So that is why. That same day, my morning unfortunately didn't start off that great. I had to put my cat down, and I had my cat for 21 years. And it was the best decision. She was about to turn 22 years old, 22 human years. So she had a long, good life, and she already had some health stuff that was coming up. And we were keeping her comfortable, and she was still fine. She was still eating. She was still drinking water. And then over the last week, her health kind of took a turn. So I made the decision that I think was best for her. And the doctor was very honest, but also very emotionally available. And so I've just had a little bit of a roller coaster of a time this week between some quick travel. I went to my aunt's wedding, came back, dealt with the cat, then saw family. It was like I had the roller coaster of both extremes of emotions in the same day and within 24 hours of extreme sadness and grief, but also extreme excitement. But the interesting part here is that my cat unfortunately transitioned, which she can't live forever. Nobody can. But yet that afternoon, I found out that one of my closest cousins is expecting. And not only is she expecting a baby, she's expecting two. So I feel like it was really the universe reminding me that this is the cycle of life, right? And just like we unfortunately have to let go of people or pets that we love, we also get to welcome in new ones. And life is nothing more than a cycle of deaths and rebirths, not even just physical deaths and rebirths, right? But like deaths and rebirths of ourselves. And I really feel like I went through a personal identity death when I started to build my personal brand, because my identity was wrapped around, oh, I'm this Latina who works in tech, and I have this 6-figure salary, and I get to go to these different conferences, and I get to travel for work. But yet inside I felt so unfulfilled And the moment I started building my personal brand, it was like that old version of me had to die for this new version to come. So, not to get super deep with you all about branding, but I really do feel like our personal brand evolves as well. And mine's totally evolving. And even just my evolution of supporting others with a personal brand, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm coming back to where I started and helping other people do the same. So, thank you for going on that tangent with me. Let's talk about something that I've been thinking about lately, which is what stops us from showing up when we believe that we have to be the expert. And this is something I'm calling the calladita conditioning. So if you don't know what the word calladita means, it means to be quiet. And there's this saying in Spanish, calladita te ves más bonita. And the translation or the saying in English is that women should be seen and not heard. So pretty much don't speak up, don't use your voice. But yet, when we build a brand, when we create content, we're doing the complete opposite of that. We are using our voice, we're putting ourselves out there, and we're going against that conditioning that a lot of us were brought up with. And even if you don't identify as Latina, if you just have either immigrant parents or you come from, your parents are of a different generation, which I'm sure they are, where they still believe that you should be very outspoken or you should be really humble, then you probably feel this same conditioning, even if you don't call it the calladita conditioning. By the way, this is not a known word. It's a concept that I've come up with because I see this happen over and over. And I even see it happen with myself. When my messaging shifts, when I want to share specific things, I find myself kind of going back to this calladita conditioning, and I find myself asking myself, who am I to talk about this? And maybe you yourself have also thought this, that maybe you need to be 100% certain before you can speak up, or that you shouldn't position yourself as the expert or as knowledgeable until you are the expert, or you're not allowed to share what you know until you're the expert. Maybe you have this belief that you need permission before you can speak. Maybe in a meeting at work, not unless you're called on do you say anything. And perhaps you carry that belief that in order for you to be able to lead or to be able to speak up, you have to be overqualified. You have to have the most amount of degrees in the room or the most amount of certifications and whatnot. I remember this came up for me so much when I started my food blog, because I was saying, oh, I'm not a chef. I didn't go to culinary school. I'm not a pastry chef. Who do I think I am? I'm not a nutritionist. How am I going to share healthy recipes when I'm not the expert? And the truth is that the fact that I was not an expert is why people enjoyed following me, because I was learning. And as I was learning, I was sharing as I went. And this idea that we need to be the expert before we can show up to create content is not true. It's a complete myth. The benefit of allowing people to see your progress and to follow you along your journey, it's like, think about when we watch a movie, right? The reason we're rooting for the protagonist in the film is because we get to see their journey. We see their struggle. We see what they've overcome. And in the last episode, I talked about how the reason we love Bad Bunny so much is because 10 years ago, he was bagging groceries. And we love that story. We really do. So allow others to be part of your story. And I know that that feels vulnerable because you're feeling like, okay, well, if I'm going to show up, then I want to show up as the expert. I want to be seen as the person who got it right. I want to be seen as the person who knows what they're talking about. And you will be. You will be. But it also requires you to show your humanness, because people like to follow people they can relate to, not people who are just experts. Don't get me wrong. If you're like a heart surgeon and you're like, here's what I've learned in my 20 years of being this heart surgeon, then yes, of course, that content's going to do well. But in my experience, I started creating content and then my business came from building my brand. The fact that I had built the brand, all these opportunities started coming my way. And that's when I ended up building my business. But the reason that people worked with me in my business is because I documented my whole journey. I shared what I was struggling with. People knew that I was a real human that went through real struggles, and I still was successful. And because of that, people were like, I want to work with her. So imagine that you follow, let's say you have dietary issues, right? Or like some type of wellness issue, and you're not really sure what diet you should be on. You're having a bunch of trouble. And then there's one person that's like, oh my gosh, I am a nutritionist. I went to the top school ever. And then you have another person who shared their journey and they're like, okay, here's what I'm struggling with right now. I'm having a lot of inflammation and I'm trying this. Let's see how this works. And then they're kind of documenting their journey. And then they get to this place where they're like, hey, I've mastered this health issue that I was going through, and it's similar to your symptoms. Of course, you're going to go with the person who has shared that they have similar struggles to you. And that's the value of sharing progress over perfection. I hope you are enjoying this podcast episode. I just have one quick message for you. The questions I get over and over are, how were you able to leave your tech job? How did you start your business? How are you able to travel so much? Every time I see your stories, you're traveling somewhere new. And how did you become your own boss and create such a purpose-driven business? These are the common questions that I get over and over. And as I sat to think about the response to these, the answer is that I built my personal brand. None of these things would be possible if I did not begin to build my brand and show up and create content and create impact. Because of that, that is why I was able to leave my tech job, start my own business. So this is a training that is long overdue. I am teaching you all how I manifested my first 10,000 followers by building my personal brand. This training is happening on Monday, March 9th. FYI, that is daylight savings time, so please add it to your calendar once you sign up. I don't want you to miss it because live is always best, but we will be sending out the replay. So if you sign up and can't make it, don't worry, we'll send you that replay that evening. This training is for you if you've opened up an Instagram account or a TikTok account with all the intention of being super consistent, only to completely ghost the account. Maybe you are somebody who gets these great ideas when you're in the shower or when you're driving, but you have such a hard time taking action on them because you don't feel ready. Maybe you've watched people who you know completely blow up and think, damn, that could have been me if I had just started showing up. Maybe you do know the power of a personal brand, but you're stuck overthinking. You're maybe afraid about what you should post, how you should post it, or what other people might say or think. Maybe you dream of starting a business and you understand that building a personal brand is one of the first steps to doing that. I am going to be teaching you all the mistakes I made because I had 2 failed attempts at building my personal brand before I did it successfully. And then I'm going to share with you the strategies that do work. I can't wait to see you there. Again, it's happening on Monday, March 9th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Sign up using the link down below. Can't wait to see you there. But a lot of us have this calladita conditioning of like, oh, I can't speak until I'm perfect. And we've been conditioned to show up as perfect. And I mean, I don't know what your internal family system was like, but at least in mine, people kept really quiet about health issues, about anything vulnerable. Like things had to be hush hush. And that has followed me through my life. And I've had to unlearn that because I'm like, no, F that. I'd rather share my journey so that I can help other people and so that other people can help me. We're human beings and human beings are wired for connection. And in the rise of AI and the time of isolation where social isolation is so easy, right? Like you can stay home for a week and not see anybody and you would survive because if you need anything from Amazon, you can order it. You can DoorDash some food or get some food delivery service. You can FaceTime people, but you're not having human to human connection. And that's really what we are desiring as a culture. We're deprived of that. We're deprived of connection. And that's a whole nother tangent. So this calladita conditioning shows up when you want to create content, when you want to build a brand, when you want to start or grow a business. And it can sound really practical, right? It sounds something like this. I need another certification before I can start. Or I know I can help people, but I'm not ready to accept any money yet. I don't want to charge them yet. Or who am I to talk about this if I don't have any evidence with my certifications or degrees? Or I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to get it wrong. And these all sound like really practical, logical things to say. But what ends up happening is when you have these thoughts, you don't do anything. You just stay in inaction. Or maybe you do go after that other certification and you're thinking, oh, once I have that certification, then I'm going to feel confident. And then you get the certification and guess what? You don't feel confident because it was never a preparation issue. It was never a qualification thing. It was always about you believing that you're worthy enough with your lived experience, believing that you can support people through your journey, through sharing your progress, through rather than being perfect, but allowing them to see your progress. You don't build your personal brand after you've mastered everything. You build it as you are learning. Because, like I mentioned, people don't connect to perfection, they connect to progress. They really love being able to see your evolution. They love seeing your mindset shifts, the lessons that you've learned, the courage, the fact that you were afraid and you still took the action and you were still successful. And the thing is that when they see you navigating these challenges and you still move forward, that is where they trust you on a level deeper than any other expert could be trusted. And this is exactly what happened with me as I was building my brand and showing up on TikTok. I showed up, and I've always been somebody who loves learning. And I started showing up and sharing everything I was learning about meditation, even guided meditations. I was not a certified meditation teacher. I hadn't really taken any courses on meditation. I read some books. I did my own meditation experience. I spent some time journaling. And then a few weeks after posting all this content, I get an email from Harvard University asking me if I could come lead meditations for their first gen group. And that is a great example of how I was not the expert. I was sharing my progress, and that was so much more valuable for the individual who found me and hired me. And I was working with the first gen group, and I specifically was talking about my experience with meditation being first gen. So you never know what can happen through sharing your progress. And what I have found with calladita conditioning is that it's not that you're not knowledgeable. I mean, you've literally lived through your whole life and you have an 100% success rate. In other words, you've survived every single thing you've gone through in your life and you are here, right? So we need to stop discounting our own lived experience. It comes easy to you because you already lived through it and you know what you know, but you'd be surprised how helpful you could be to somebody else. Let's say that you are a woman who successfully navigated premenopause, or you are an individual that learned how to study really well, or you became a yoga instructor and actually used yoga to help with your mental wellness. Think about the challenges that you've overcome, and that is what you can support other people with. And also think about where it is that you want to go. And once you set kind of a goal for yourself, that makes creating content and showing up from a personal brand a lot easier. For example, I decided that I was going to grow to 30,000 followers. And I think I talked about this in the last episode. Oh yeah. So then the Bad Bunny episode was like 2 episodes ago. No, that was the same episode. I'm getting confused with my own podcast episodes. Point is, I set a goal for 30,000 followers, and I was about to post the video when things started picking up. And I ended up recording a whole video from like the before and the after and documenting the journey. And did it go viral? No, but I got so many messages about it. It really resonated with people. And what a coincidence that I'm also hosting a class all about a free training all about how I manifested my first 10,000 followers. But literally within the last week, I've almost gained another 10,000 followers. So I get to share all of this. But the reason it's so relevant for people is because they saw my struggles when I decided that that was my goal. And I talked about my doubts and how I believe that maybe content's not my thing anymore. And then they got to see me win. And that's why it resonated so much. So whether you want to make money online, leave a job that you really don't like, or to live your purpose through some form of online entrepreneurship, or maybe you want to wake up to payment notifications, or maybe you want to get DMs saying, hey, your content has really helped me, or you want to build confidence, you want to stop overthinking, or build self-trust. That does not come from already being an expert. It comes from building your brand publicly, allowing people to see your progress, or sharing the progress of something you've already done, like sharing your lessons learned. I find it's more valuable in real time, just like my meditation example, how I was learning meditation, leading meditations on TikTok, and then Harvard runs in my DMs. Crazy, right? Or I also was practicing interviewing people on TikTok, and then TikTok asked me to interview Luis Fonsi on TikTok Live. literally the most nervous I've ever been in my life. And these things happen because I was allowing myself to show my progress. So if you have the belief that you need to be an expert before you create content, I challenge that thought. And I hope this episode supports you in seeing that that's actually not true. It's way more valuable when people see you as a human being that's going through a challenge that's relatable to them. And then they see you keep going. They want to follow along. They want to follow along if you're like, hey, I'm on a journey to this. They want to see what happens. They're more likely to follow. They're more likely to cheer you on. We always aim for the underdogs, right? Versus the person who's already the expert. So if you are like, yep, this sounds like everything I needed to hear, then join me on my free training happening on March 9th. It's all about, like I mentioned just a moment ago, how I manifested my first 10,000 followers and how I did this while I was still learning and allowing content to just kind of be fun. So come join me for the training. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait to see you there. Share it with a friend. The link to sign up is down below in the show notes, or you can visit my Instagram and the link is in my bio, or you can just type the word brand on any of my posts, or you can DM me and then we'll immediately send you the link from there. All right. Thank you so much for joining me and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theerikacruz.com. That's Erika with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erika Cruz. That's Erika with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.